David was the kind of person most people didn't notice right away. He was quiet, soft-spoken, and always polite. He had kind brown eyes and a warm smile, the kind that made people feel safe even if they didn't know him. David had started working at the office supply company just 3 weeks ago. He wasn't the fastest person in the office. He used a cane and walked with a slight limp, but he was careful and steady in everything he did. Maria, one of the office assistants, noticed him the first day he arrived. She had a habit of watching people, not in a nosy way, but in a thoughtful one. Maria liked to understand what made people act the way they did. She was quiet too, but not shy. She simply believed in listening more than speaking. The company was a busy place. People moved quickly, phones rang all day, and boxes of printer paper and pens were always being delivered or shipped out. The office was neat and cold, with white walls and buzzing lights. But what really set the mood wasn't the building, it was the boss. Mr. Grant ran the place. He wore expensive suits and walked like he owned the world. He laughed loudly and often made rude jokes that made people uncomfortable. He especially liked to tease those he thought were weak. Maria had worked under him for 2 years and had seen it too many times. When David arrived, Mr. Grant barely gave him a full glance. But as the days went on, Maria saw it start. Small comments at first about David's cane, his slow steps, or how long he took at the copier. Some of the others in the office laughed. Some didn't. But no one said anything to stop it. David never argued. He smiled politely, thanked people when they helped, and worked quietly at his desk. He always arrived on time and never complained, even when Mr. Grant made jokes in front of others. Maria watched all of this. She didn't know David well yet, but she could already tell. He had more strength in him than Mr. Grant would ever understand. It happened during the Monday morning meeting. The team gathered in the conference room, mugs of coffee in hand, notepads ready. Mr. Grant stood at the front, arms crossed, eyes scanning the room like always. David was sitting near the back, flipping through the meeting notes. Maria was across from him, half listening, half watching like she usually did. Mr. Grant started talking about shipping delays and client complaints. Then he pointed toward David. "Well, maybe if everyone moved a little faster, we wouldn't have these issues," he said with a smirk. "Unless, of course, you've got a built-in excuse." He made a mocking limp as he stepped aside. "Right, David?" The room fell silent. A few nervous chuckles floated up, but no one laughed fully. Most people looked down or away. Maria's stomach twisted. She stared at Mr. Grant, unable to believe he said that out loud. She looked at David, whose face didn't change much. He gave a small, awkward smile and looked back at his notes. But Maria caught it, a flicker in his eyes. A quiet hurt he didn't let show on his face. After the meeting, no one said anything about the comment. Not to Mr. Grant. Not to David. But in the break room later, Maria overheard 2 co-workers whispering. "It's honestly brave what he does," one said. "Yeah," the other agreed. "Just showing up every day. I don't think I could do it." Maria wanted to ask them why they didn't say anything during the meeting, why they didn't speak up when it mattered. But she said nothing too. She wasn't proud of that. As the days passed, Mr. Grant's teasing didn't stop. It wasn't always big moments. Sometimes it was quiet comments in passing. "Need a head start, David?" he said one morning when the team was heading to a training session. Another time he laughed. "I only hired you because HR said I needed to diversify a little." Everyone heard. No one corrected him. David never raised his voice. He didn't argue or defend himself. He simply kept doing his work, slower than some but better than most. He helped others when he could and thanked people with a gentle nod when they held doors open or carried boxes for him. Maria watched it all. The unfairness of it burned inside her. David had done nothing wrong. All he ever showed was grace, patience, and quiet strength. And yet, he was the one being mocked by the loudest voice in the room. The saddest part was, no one, not even Maria, had found the courage to stop it. Not yet. It started with small conversations, just little chats by the printer, or near the coffee machine. Maria had never been one to talk much at work, but something about David made it easy. He never talked about himself unless someone asked, and even then, he kept it simple. One day, while waiting for the copier, Maria asked him what he did before working at the office. I was an engineer, he said quietly, adjusting the cane he leaned on. Worked on bridges and roads for about 12 years. She blinked, surprised. That's amazing. Why'd you leave? He paused a moment, then answered with a gentle tone. Car accident. Took me off my feet for a long time. Had to relearn a lot of things. Now I'm starting fresh. Maria didn't know what to say, but David smiled like it was no big deal. As weeks went by, she noticed more about him, things others missed. David stayed after hours to tidy the supply room when no one asked. He helped a new intern figure out the filing system, walking slowly from desk to desk without ever complaining. One Friday, he brought in homemade cookies and left them in the break room with a little note that read, "Happy Friday. Hope today's kind to you." He didn't sign it, but Maria saw him quietly placing the tray before anyone arrived. People ate the cookies, said they were good. No one asked where they came from. David didn't mind. He didn't do it for attention. He just did what he could, where he could, every day. Even when Mr. Grant made his usual comments, David didn't flinch. He never argued or rolled his eyes. He just gave a polite smile, returned to his work, and carried on. Maria saw it wasn't weakness. It was strength, the kind that didn't shout or show off, the kind that held steady even when things were hard. He asked others how they were doing and actually listened. He remembered small details, like how Maria liked her tea without sugar or how the receptionist had a sick dog. Maria realized something after a while. David brought a quiet light into the office. He didn't need praise or attention. He simply made things better just by being who he was. And still, despite all that, most people barely noticed. Most except Maria. She was starting to see just how rare someone like David really was. It was a Wednesday morning, just like any other. The sky outside was gray, and the office was full of the usual clatter. Keyboards clicking, phones ringing, and printers humming. David came in at his usual time, wearing his usual calm smile. He moved slowly to his desk, placed his cane gently against the side, and began sorting through his papers. Everything seemed normal until just after lunch. He stood up, walked quietly to the front office, and handed an envelope to the HR manager. No fuss, no scene, just a polite nod. "I'm giving my 2 weeks' notice," he said gently. "Thank you for the opportunity." Word spread fast. Whispers ran through the hallways. David's leaving? Did something happen? Why now? Maria's heart sank. She tried to hide it, but she felt a lump in her throat. She found him near the copier later that day. "You're really leaving?" she asked. David nodded, his face calm. "Yes, it's time." "But why?" Maria's voice was soft. "You've been so good here." He smiled kindly, the same way he always did. Sometimes good things aren't noticed right away. That's okay. Things always come around. When Mr. Grant heard the news, he chuckled. "Guess he couldn't handle a real job," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. A few people glanced at each other, uncomfortable, but no one replied. Maria's hands clenched. She wanted to shout at him, to tell him how wrong he was, but David simply shook his head slightly and gave her a look that said, "Don't. It's not worth it." The next day, David came in for the last time. He moved slowly from desk to desk, shaking hands, wishing people well. Most just said goodbye with polite smiles, unsure of what else to say. When he reached Maria's desk, he handed her a small envelope. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for seeing me." She opened the card after he left. Inside, written in neat handwriting, were the words, "You don't need a loud voice to make a strong difference. Keep being who you are." Maria didn't know where David was going. He didn't say. But as she looked around the office that suddenly felt emptier, she knew something had changed, and not just for her. A week had passed since David left. The office felt different, quieter, heavier. No one said it out loud, but people noticed his absence. The little things stood out the most. The break room table was empty where his cookies once sat, and the printer jammed more often without him. Quietly fixing it, Maria missed him more than she expected. She kept his card tucked in her top drawer, reading it when the days felt long. Then, on a rainy Tuesday morning, something unusual happened. An email went out from HR. It was marked important and titled, "Unexpected Gift to the Hardship Fund." The company had a hardship fund for employees going through tough times. Sickness, family emergencies, sudden expenses. It was rarely used and hardly ever talked about. But now someone had donated a large sum of money to it. A year's salary, in fact. Everyone was buzzing. Who would do such a thing? The email read, "A generous anonymous donation has been made to support our hardship fund. We are incredibly grateful. This donation is equal to the full yearly salary of one employee." People began to whisper in the halls. Do you think it was corporate? Maybe a past client? Maybe someone rich just wanted a tax write-off. Mr. Grant walked into the break room not long after, smiling like a man who'd just won something. "Well," he said loudly, "I guess some of you might be wondering about the donation. Let's just say I believe in supporting the people who work hard." He straightened his tie and grinned. "Some of us give back. Some of us just take up space." Maria stared at him, her jaw clenched. She knew he didn't donate that money. Everyone else seemed unsure. Later that afternoon, a plain white envelope arrived at the front desk. No return address, no stamp. Just one word written on the front, "For the truth." The receptionist brought it straight to HR. Within an hour, a second email was sent out to all staff. This one was shorter. The donation made to the hardship fund was not from management. It was from a former employee. Attached is the note and bank receipt that came with today's envelope. Maria clicked the file with shaky hands. Inside was a scanned note, written in careful handwriting. "This is from someone you didn't see. Someone who saw more in others than you ever did." Below it was a receipt from David's bank, showing the full transfer of his final paycheck, his entire year's earnings, to the company's employee fund. The office fell into silence. Maria could feel the shift as it swept through the halls like a slow wave. People stared at their screens. Some looked toward Mr. Grant's office with wide eyes. He didn't come out for the rest of the day. By lunchtime, whispers filled the halls. "Did you see the note?" It was David. He gave everything back to help us. Maria sat at her desk, her heart full. She wasn't surprised, not really. That was who David was. He didn't want applause or thanks. He just wanted to make things better. She felt tears press at the corners of her eyes. He had been insulted, overlooked, even mocked. And still, he had given back. Quietly, strongly. Mr. Grant came out near the end of the day. His face was pale, his usual smirk gone. He didn't say anything, just walked past the rows of desks, pretending not to see the way people looked at him now. No one laughed at his jokes after that. The story spread. Some said it made them rethink how they treated others. Some said they wished they had spoken up sooner. Maria just felt proud. Proud to have known someone like David. Someone who didn't need a spotlight to do something big. Someone who showed the world that kindness, true kindness, was louder than any voice raised in cruelty. In the days after the donation was revealed, something strange happened. Mr. Grant changed. He still wore his sharp suits and still walked with his usual confident stride, but something in his voice was softer. The loud, cruel jokes stopped. His meetings were shorter and more focused. No teasing. No laughter at someone else's expense. At first, people weren't sure what to make of it. Was it guilt, embarrassment, fear? Maybe all of it. But over time, something about Mr. Grant seemed different. Then, one Friday morning, he called a team meeting. Everyone gathered in the same conference room where, weeks before, he had mocked David in front of them all. This time the room was quiet before he even spoke. Mr. Grant stood at the front looking serious. He cleared his throat and held a small piece of paper in his hand. He didn't pace or smile. He just looked around the room and began. "I've made mistakes," he said, his voice steady. Some of them were things I said out loud. Some were things I chose not to see. No one moved. I used to think strength looked a certain way, he went on. Loud, fast, tough. I thought kindness was weakness. I was wrong. He looked down for a second, then back up. David. He paused, as if saying the name felt heavy. David showed more strength than I've ever had. He didn't argue. He didn't fight back. But he gave us all something none of us deserved. His respect, his effort, and in the end, his generosity. Maria felt tears prick her eyes. She wasn't the only one. Across the room, people nodded quietly, eyes lowered. Mr. Grant continued. We failed him. I failed him. But I don't want to keep failing. I want to change. This office needs to be better, kinder, more human. He stepped back, then added, starting today, our hardship fund will have a new name. From now on, it will be called the David Fund. There was silence, but not the awkward kind. It was full of emotion, respect, regret, hope. Maria wiped her cheek and smiled softly. She knew David would never have asked for recognition. He didn't need his name on anything. But maybe, just maybe, this was the kind of change he'd believed. And from that day on, the office felt warmer. People held doors open more often. Laughter came from a kinder place. And every time someone said the David Fund, they remembered the man who had walked quietly, but left footprints too deep to forget. Maria sat at her desk one evening long after everyone else had gone home. The office was quiet now, the soft hum of the lights above her the only sound. Outside, the sky was turning a pale orange, the last stretch of sunlight slipping behind the buildings. She opened her small notebook, the one she kept in her bag, and flipped to a fresh page. Her pen hovered for a moment before she began to write. It's been 3 weeks since David left. The office is different now. Softer. Quieter in the right ways. People smile more. They help without being asked. Even Mr. Grant looks people in the eye when he talks. But most of all, I think we remember. Not because David demanded it, but because he earned it in every small, quiet moment he gave us. Maria paused and reached into her drawer. She pulled out the small card David had given her. She read the words for what must have been the 100th time. Kindness doesn't need a stage. It shines in silence. She smiled gently, brushing her fingers over the edges of the paper. It still smelled faintly of the peppermint tea David used to drink. I hope he's happy, she wrote. Wherever he is now. I hope he's somewhere where kindness is seen the first time, not the last. Somewhere he doesn't have to prove his worth to anyone. Maria closed the notebook slowly and looked around the room. It would never be quite the same again. One day, she thought, maybe more people will see what David showed us. That real strength doesn't shout. It doesn't push others down. It lifts people up, quietly, patiently, and always with love. And with that, she turned off the light. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect on the quiet strength around you. Like this story if you believe kindness matters. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever known someone like David? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of compassion, dignity, and everyday heroes.